Joining me now from Montreal and the First Minister's meeting as it wraps up is the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. Scott Moe, thanks very much for speaking with us.
Well, thank you, Martin.
First question, what do you think was achieved at this meeting?
Pardon me, what do I think was...
What do you think was achieved? You went into this one, for example, let's take a specific. You went into this asking Ottawa to put off its carbon tax so you could have your court challenge, so you could have your day in court. Ottawa said no way. Do you call that a defeat?
Yeah. What we've asked Ottawa, the federal government, to do is to allow the courts some time to make a decision in the same way they did in the case of the pipelines. They should allow the courts to decide whether or not they have the constitutional authority to do what they think they have the authority to do. We don't feel they do, and they should allow some time for that process to take place. The second benchmark that we were looking for today was to ensure we get some collaboration and some opportunity on Bill C-69. It's a bill that cannot move forward in its present form. It will ensure that there will not be pipelines or mines built in the years ahead if it moves forward in its present form. We did get a commitment from the federal government that they will be working with the provinces and looking at the submissions that we have already filed and will refile through our ministers in the next number of days, so that we can ensure that that bill actually will work for industries, and it's our hope that they will make the necessary amendments to that. And that was the commitment that was made by the federal government today, was that they would work with the provinces on that bill.
Okay, so you got a no on the first item. On the second item, can we maybe flesh that out? There have been reports that the Prime Minister or his office has suggested to the Alberta Premier, and I'm wondering if that's what was promised to you, that the, for example, in situ oil sands projects would not be evaluated by new federal standards. They would be just evaluated by provincial standards. New projects would be under provincial standards, and there would not be any evaluation of what's called downstream environmental impacts. Are those, have you gotten those kind of guarantees?
No, we haven't, but we need the provincial jurisdiction to be recognized across the board, not on an ad hoc basis. The provincial jurisdiction in the environment needs to be recognized if we truly want to go to one environmental assessment, which we have done in many cases in years gone by. But that's one of the amendments that needs to be made, and one of the things that needs to be looked at with this bill is that the provincial jurisdiction needs to be respected.
But you didn't get any specific commitment from the Prime Minister today.
And we need a policy across the nation that ensures this is actually the case, whether it be a pipeline application that's coming through or whether it be a potash mine in Saskatchewan. We have had $20 billion of investment in the potash industry over the last decade in Saskatchewan that has made it among the most sustainable industries in the world and the most efficient in potash production facilities in the world, right here in our nation of Canada. I'm not certain that would have happened under Bill C-69, and we need to ensure that as we move forward, these types of projects that are good for Saskatchewan, good for Canada, and good for the world, essentially, when you look at the sustainability of them, need to continue. And we can't have a bill like C-69 in its current form stopping this.
Right, but I'm just wondering if the Prime Minister gave you any specifics in terms of what the changes would be, or is it just a commitment to hear what your concerns are?
We're not as interested in exempting on an ad hoc basis certain projects. That tells me the bill is even more is flawed, and that tells me the federal government is acknowledging that it's flawed. We need to have a proper regulatory environment in place so that we can attract investment from all around the world into our nation and into our provinces. For that, we need certainty in our regulatory environment, not an ad hoc one-off where we will remove certain industries from it.
Okay, you were also quoted as saying you were in the room, and I'm asking this of all the premiers because I'm just trying to get a clear idea, but there is quite a fight going on right now between Ontario, which says that the Prime Minister is asking Ontario to do more than 30% emissions cut, and Ottawa, which is saying, no, we're not making any new request of Ontario. We haven't changed the goalposts. What's your reading of what that discussion was with Ontario and in general with more than 30% greenhouse gas emissions? What did you hear in the room?
There was a discussion with respect to moving the goalposts, if you will, and looking to certain areas of the nation to doing more in their emissions reductions than maybe some other areas are capable of, and that is news to me. That's a new discussion that I've never been part of. I go back to the true last pan-Canadian agreement that all of the First Ministers signed. That was the Vancouver Declaration, where all of the premiers across the nation signed on to doing what they could to reduce emissions so that Canada could have every opportunity to achieve their Paris Accord commitments, understanding the variability and differences in emissions profiles and opportunities for reductions that we have across the nation. That was the last agreement that was agreed to by all of the leaders in the nation of Canada, including my predecessor, Premier Wall, and that's the agreement that we abide by and continue to govern ourselves by in Saskatchewan.
So you come out of this meeting with a clear impression that Ottawa is changing what it's asking of the provinces? It is asking more than 30%?
Well, there was a discussion with respect to it. I don't think it will actually go anywhere, and nor should it. Listen, we are one nation, and we should work together where we can to ensure that we're getting the maximum value for, in our case, a stranded asset of energy products across Canada. We can take that product, move it to another province in the nation, and refine it into a higher value product and sell it to Canadians and all around the world. This is how we operate as a nation. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to emissions and reduction of emissions, there's no questioning that we need to do better. There's no questioning that we need to reduce emissions so that Canada can achieve its Paris Accord commitments. Where the divergence is in exactly how we do that. There's a number of provinces now that don't think a carbon tax is effective. They don't think it's the proper tool to use in reducing these emissions. We're actually seeing that same conversation break out around the world in all places, if you will, of where the Paris Accord was signed, and that is unfortunate to see.
Okay, well, Premier Moe, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks for speaking with us, and we'll speak no doubt at a later date. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Martin.